me, Geordie Pete Redding at Hollywood Balls, but it's Hollywood Balls with a difference. It's the best partnership since Satan Greavesy. It's Hollywood Balls meets chatting with Campbell. Super Kev, how are you?
Pete, I'm very well, thank you. I tell you what, I've got to say, I'm excited, Pete. I am very excited.
It's that day as well, isn't it? Are you excited for the Premier League or because it's Dickie Bow Thursday?
I'm always excited for Dickie Bow Thursday. You know that. But Premier League season starting on a Friday, and it's Brentford versus the mighty Arsenal tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to it, and I can't wait.
Great stuff.
Pete, are you looking forward to it?
I am. I'm looking forward to the season, all that it brings. Trepidation, of course. I mean, it's exciting. We'll get on to Newcastle because what we're going to do is something a little bit different. With the Premier League just hours away, literally, from the big kickoff, we're going to focus on the three teams that matter the most to us. So we're going to be looking at Arsenal, Everton, and, of course, Newcastle United. I'm going to start with Arsenal. I think if I was to suggest anything, Kev, patience has been a virtue at the Emirates. So the big question is, diving straight into it, is it time to deliver this season?
Well, I think, well, look, talking about deliver is deliver what?
Yeah.
What Arsenal need is to be competitive. That's number one thing, Pete.
Okay.
Because nobody's got a divine right to be at the top there. A lot of the teams who are up there have invested heavily and bought well. Arsenal have spent money, but they haven't spent money well. So Arsenal have got quite a bit of catching up to do. You're starting to see a pattern how Mikel Arteta and Edu are recruiting. They're recruiting younger British players type thing in there, or younger players in there who can come in, who've got energy. What they need probably is a bit of experience in there as well. A bit of craft, a bit of know-how. There are holes in that squad, Pete. I'm not going to deny it. There are holes in that squad, and they need to be filled before the end of the window.
Big time. I watched a fantastic show, The Chatting with Campbell, with Lee Judges, who I've got the utmost respect for. Tells it like it is. True fan. Finishing 8th in the last 2 seasons, it's simply not good enough, is it?
No, not good enough for Arsenal. But like I always say, Pete, the chickens come home to roost eventually. If you recruit poorly season after season after season after season, there is going to come a time where you hit the buffers.
Yeah.
For the last 2 seasons, Arsenal have hit the buffers because they don't really have the players, assets to sell, and the team is deteriorating.
Yeah.
So what you've got to do, you've got to find a way, and that's what Mikel Arteta is trying to do. Is it injected the youth in, which has been a godsend. It's been a savior for Arsenal, if I'm honest.
It has.
But now, you look at Gabriel coming in, you look at Thomas Partey coming in, quality players. Kieran Tierney, he's stepped up. He's one of the best left backs around. So you're starting to see, okay, we are starting to get a feeling that something could be happening. But this window is the most important now, Pete, because the Mesut Ozils of this world have gone, the big wages that he had. So how are you going to spread that out? They've brought Ben White in. People saying we don't need a centre-half. We do need a centre-half because we lost David Luiz. David Luiz was so important at the back, much maligned, could make a mistake, but his distribution was key at the back. And we never replaced that. Ben White's coming to do that. Need a right back, need a goalkeeper, need another couple of midfielders, need a creative player, need a striker. I mean, it's a big shopping list. It's a big shopping list. It's a big shopping list, Pete. But if you get 3 out of the 5, then you can say okay.
Do you think? Speaking to some of the Arsenal fans that I know, just before I was recording this with you, just getting their sort of, their ideal scenarios, and a lot of them were saying to me that they in Arteta they trust. But do you think that basically he had a free hit last season because it was literally he was picking up the pieces from, as you quite rightly say, who'd been bought, and he was looking at what he could get rid of and who fitted in where. So, sort of a free hit for him, wasn't it? Really?
Well, Pete, no, it wasn't a free hit, and here's the reason why it wasn't a free hit. He came in the season before for half a season. Okay.
Yeah.
In the league, we done okay and then struggled a bit. Then there was the lockdown. Then when the season reconvened, we lost, I think it was, we lost to Man City, then we lost to Brighton, and then we started to find our feet, and then we went on that cup run. And winning the FA Cup kind of made people take notice. I think he can get a tune out of these guys.
Yeah.
So he was being judged from the start of last season, really. So he had half a season, he was being judged. Here's the big problem, Pete. You've got to see what you've got in the dressing room, and you've got to balance the squad. You've got players like Mesut Ozil, etc., who really the club need to get rid of. You've got younger players in Saka, Smith Rowe, Martinelli, who you want to try and incorporate. You've got experienced players who aren't playing to last season, who aren't playing to their potential. So that creates a problem. And the worst of the lot, Pete, you got no fans in.
Yeah.
Because whether we like it or not, you know it at Newcastle, I know it at the Emirates, whatever people say, it's a much tougher place to go when the fans are there.
Absolutely.
With no fans, teams fancy it. Teams fancied going to Anfield with no fans there. It's not the same without the fan base. So there was a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of things to juggle, Pete. And Mikel Arteta, first half of the season, the team struggled. The team really struggled. And he knew he had to start making some moves. So they made the moves in January and got rid of some of the players. He brought Odegaard in, knew he needed somebody to link the play. And the team didn't finish the season where they wanted to be, but the second half of the season, there was improvements.
Yeah.
So here we are in pre-season. Season's about to start, but there's a couple of weeks on for the transfer window. And Arsenal, by all intents and purposes, have not done the business that they want, but there is still time. That's the key, Pete. So there's not been no free hits. All it's done is let the fan base combust. They've been combusting in last season, and now they can go back to the stadium. What do you reckon is going to happen if Arsenal ain't doing the business? They're going to be listen. He's under pressure straight away. So there was no free hits, Pete. I could tell you that.
Speaking of what has come in, I think one of the signings of the pre-season so far, and it's gone unnoticed because of all the other business and Messi's going on elsewhere. But what a signing Ben White is, by the way.
Hey, listen, a lot of people don't know how good this kid is.
Oh yeah,
this young man, he's a baller. He is a real baller, and he's going to improve us. And I know a lot of people say, "Oh, but we had the first best defensive record." That was with David Luiz. And this is what people forget. David Luiz's distribution is a lot better than a lot of other centre-halves that we've got. Ben White coming in, that level stays the same or might even improve because of his athleticism in carrying the ball out. So I think that was a real key signing, and he's one who could be at the club for the next 10 years, Pete.
Excellent. Put you on the spot then as the Arsenal bit comes to an end. Prediction for finishing position for the Arsenal?
I reckon Arsenal will finish in the top 6.
Right.
Position-wise. You give me top 6 now, Pete, I will take it.
Sure.
Solely because there's an improvement. We can't do what we done last season because I'm telling you, the club will not recover from it.
Okay.
It will not recover. But I think top 6, 5th, 6th, if we could sneak in the top 4, I'll snap your hand off now.
I'm sure you would. I'd love to see that. I mean, I look at the European nights and the games, and it's not the same without Arsenal in there. They're famous European nights. So, like you say, though, that they have no right to be there. But as a fan, I think I'd like to see that. Okay, so top 6 for Kev for the Arsenal. Moving on to one of your other teams, that you're extremely fond of, and they're still fond of you. Love that video, by the way. Still, the Super Kevin Campbell video. It takes you about 10 minutes to walk down the street. It's fantastic. It's Everton.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to say, is it fair? Is it fair to say Rafa's got 2 jobs this season? He's got to get results, but he's also got to win the fans over, hasn't he?
Well, that's 40,001 jobs he's got to do, because obviously winning the fans over is key. But you know, when you mix this cake up, he has to win games. And winning games is gonna make the fans realize, do you know what? Let's give him a bit more time. Let's give him a chance, because it's against your local rivals. Manager is always a tough one, Pete. He's always. I know it's been a long time, but it is always a tough one for certain fans to digest.
Yeah.
Look, I think he's a safe pair of hands, Pete. That's one thing I do believe. I think a lot of managers have had a lot of money to spend before him, and he hasn't had that sort of money. But I think he's managing it pretty well, because he's really assessing what he's got. He's brought in some good players, but I think Everton still have some business to do, if I'm honest with you.
I was reading comments from the owner. He's not short of a word or two. He stated that Carlo landed them in it, and the fans need to stop moaning and get on with it.
Hey, listen, one thing I will say about Mr. Moshiri, he's put his money where his mouth is, Pete.
Yeah.
And he's backed the managers, he's backed the football club. He's changed the fortunes of the football club mentally to that dream state where we want to be up there now. Whereas before it was, sometimes it was like survival. Now you're looking up. Everton do have to get on with it, Pete, because at the end of the day, there's a big squad of players there, well paid. Now it's a matter of getting results. And I said this last season, Pete, with 8 games to go, Everton could have qualified for the Champions League.
Yeah.
So it's difficult. Nobody saw Real Madrid coming in for Carlo, and that's why the owner says Carlo landed a minute, because when Real Madrid come knocking, it was too tough an offer to turn down. I get that, but having a safe pair of hands in Rafa Benitez is a good thing for Everton, and the players just need to perform. It's that simple. They can win games. The 12th man's in at Goodison. It's time.
Speaking of that 12th man, and something that you just mentioned as well, if you look at the signings, Andros Townsend's come in, who Rafa knows from his time at Newcastle, of course, and Demary Gray, who's quite exciting. But I'm talking to your typical football fan, not just Everton. Newcastle are guilty of it. Most clubs are guilty of it. It's hardly going to have the Gladys Street end in raptures, is it? I mean, they're players that will add a different dimension. I think that they're 2 good signings, but do you think Everton fans want to see some support up front for Calvert-Lewin, or what do you think that the Everton fans are after?
Well, I think the narrative now is marquee signings, isn't it? Going out and splashing the cash. But you know what, Pete? Here's what I would say. Sometimes getting practical and functional players for your team is even more important than marquee signings.
Yeah.
You've got Dominic Calvert-Lewin, he's an England international now, who's been starved of service for large stretches of last season. Why? Because they don't have the correct pieces to create the chances for him. I think
those 2 will do that, yeah.
Well, Townsend will, Demary Gray will. I think that's key. You've got Richarlison, who's just won a gold medal.
Yep.
Top Brazil international player who can score goals as well. I think Everton have the makings of a real decent side who can cause a lot of the big sides problems. Everton's issue has been the functional part of their team, the pieces, the wide areas haven't had it right. They need players who's gonna create and be functional to create chances for Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison. And I believe in these two, they've got them. Don't forget, Moise Keane's still there. He might leave. He proved that at PSG what he can do. He was scoring every week. So Everton do have a squad, Pete. They do. But sometimes it's not what the fans want, but getting functional and practical players for your system actually means more.
And those two words as well, they sum Rafa up, functional and practical. And what he will do, you get those players playing for him. He commands a lot of respect in the dressing room. I know from Newcastle, the players wanted to play. They would bust a gut for him. So I think that maybe a couple more clever additions, shall we say Rafa type additions, and Everton could surprise a few people this season. A lot of people are talking about it won't go away, it doesn't go away up on Tyneside, of Sean Longstaff. My question to you is, though, is there not a plethora of great midfielders already? Alan and all the boys in the middle. Do they need a Sean Longstaff?
Well, I think the important thing is Rafa knows him.
Yep.
And when a manager goes into a new club, sometimes he likes to go for players that he knows. Longstaff obviously made a really big impression on him as a young player. He's got into the Newcastle first team, and he's been excellent for you guys at most of the time, Pete. So I think it's something that Rafa Benitez could do. I think Tom Davies was excellent at the second half of last season, by the way. The gauntlet was thrown down, with Decore and Allen and all these guys in midfield. And Gomez, when there was a couple of injuries, he came in and I thought he performed really well. But this is high level football now, and managers tend to go for what they know.
Yeah.
So maybe Rafa's seen something in him that, I'd prefer Sean Longstaff there. So that might happen. But in Tom Davies, if he was to go to the Toon, I'm sure the Toon would be happy because he's a good player.
Bruce has admired him. Since Bruce walked through the door at St James's Park, there's been talk of him trying to take Tom Davies. So that's a deal worth keeping your eye on. As I say, I think it's exciting. I think it's all about Everton started like a train last season. And I remember you saying on Hollywood Balls that, if it was just, like you say about Newcastle, again, strength in depth, a couple of injuries, and, the wheels are off. So I think Rafa will look at that. You'll probably go back and have a look at last season and see how they started and where their weak points were during the season and have a look at that. And he'll strengthen the squad. He likes a big squad, Rafa. So I expect to see a few more before deadline day. Predicted finish for your beloved Toffees?
I'm going to say top 8 again. I'm not so sure what's going to happen because it's a new manager. I'm a little bit apprehensive because the way they fell away at the end of the season wasn't good when they were in prime position to make a challenge for the top 4. Obviously, I want Everton to do well. I got Everton in my heart.
Yeah.
But I'm a fan who I give Rafa his due, and I'm just going to see how it goes. I want Everton to do well. And I'm going to say top 8 because Everton could finish anywhere from 8th to 4th, 5th, or any 6th or 7th. It just depends how they go. So we're going to see.
If last one on Everton, if Rafa initiates the style that he did at Newcastle, with the very careful sort of defending and hitting on the break, will Goodison be okay with that? Do you think?
Pete, the key's winning.
Yeah, as long as they win.
Listen, I'll be honest with you, Pete. If you're winning, style matters sometimes. But if you're getting that W, do you know what? The weekends are nice.
Yeah.
You know it. The Toon's buzzing. Merseyside's buzzing if Everton are winning. Everyone's happy. If you're not winning, then people start to look at the style. They start to look at this is boring. We're not happy. I think it's going to boil down to wins. If Rafa could get a good start, I think that gives him a great platform to build on.
Yeah. Top 8 for Everton and for Kev. Sounds good to me. Like I say, I'm quite excited to see. I've got family who are Everton fans, as you well know. I'm excited for them to see what Rafa can do. I hope he does well, because he's just such a great guy. Newcastle took him to their hearts, but now it's Everton's turn, and let's hope that Everton fans can do the same. Okay, speaking of Newcastle.
No, let me ask you a question then. Let me ask you a question about Newcastle.
Yeah.
What is going on, Pete?
No idea.
What is going on with the transfers, etc.? Come on.
I think that I remember reading from Liam Kennedy, who was on this show. Good old Liam from the Northern Echo, great lad. Always got his ear to the ground. He told me that Steve Bruce literally had £10 million to spend, and I was like, oh, couldn't believe it. So when the Joe Willock thing started, and I thought what would happen, and I think I mentioned it on last week's show, was that the possibility would be that they would loan Willock while they raised the money throughout the season and then pay at the end. But it looks like both clubs have agreed. I think it's between 22 and 25 with a bit of add-ons. Joe Willock, that was agreed, I think it was maybe 3 or 4 days ago. Joe is not... Arteta said yesterday that he's still an Arsenal player, but he expects that to change. So I don't know. I think from what I'm hearing in the Northeast, they're miles apart in valuation of wages, contract length as well, and of course exit clauses, because I think one of the exit clauses is he will be going straight away if they get relegated, and also if a Champions League club comes in for him. So Newcastle obviously want to lengthen that contract, and Joe wants to shorten it. So his reps and good old Lee Charnley, all the best with that, are working on that deal.
Working on the details. Yeah.
Working on the details, as they say. But again, I think, and I harp back to what you said last season. If they were to lose Wilson, and let's be right about it, Callum suffered injuries. He had 3 spells last season. He suffers with his hamstring terribly. Joe Linton's injured. Again, never mind all the jokes, but he puts a shift in, and he can create. If he's played in the right position, he can create for Callum. But Willock is ideal because of his speed and his ability to appear late in the box for goals. But Callum Wilson likes the ball over the shoulder. He's got a good turn of pace, and Joe Willock can do that. What Newcastle need is a defensive midfielder, which I believe they're looking at. They're looking at a guy from Lille. They're looking at a few. Now, that would free Shelvey up to be able to not have to... That's why Shelvey suffered last season. He was asked to defend. He doesn't do that.
He's a creative player, isn't he?
He's a creative player. It reminds me of the days when we had Ginola, and Keegan used to say to him, never mind about tackling or anything like that. You just
concentrate on going that way.
Yeah. And I think that if Shelvey can do that, you've got a great player there who can literally put it on a sixpence for the likes of Callum Wilson. But strength in depth, and it's not there. Ideally, you would like a centre forward, a creative midfielder. And that's all you're going to get if you can even get them, because I think Willock will wipe out the transfer budget.
And that's the difficult thing. Obviously, with the takeover, all that hasn't helped. And here's the thing, Pete. They were the Premier League were quick to put it back another year, weren't they?
Literally, I think it was the same day it came out. The papers were served, and it came out that it's back to 2022 now. And having known the Middle East for as long as I do, that for me is dead and buried. That's not going to happen. What I do know is that PIF, they want a football club. I don't think they'll be hanging around till 2022 for Newcastle. And mark my words, I think there could be another club in the offing. So it's a real shame.
There's one in London. There's one in London that play at the Emirates if they've got a few spare billion floating around.
I'm sure they have. But again, look at a very similar club to ours. Look at West Ham, received a great offer, 400 million, and those two, they've biffed it. They don't want to know, and it's they've hung on to this club, Gold and Sullivan, and there was a deal in there for 400 million. Like I say with Newcastle, I think that they should concentrate on this season. They should concentrate on Steve Bruce. Like you said about fans being back in, if he doesn't get a good start, it's going to be horrific for him. There's you know the feeling. You know the feeling. Yeah. We've bantered about it all last season, and you can't argue with facts. The 12th placed finish was immense, given that after that 3-0 defeat at Brighton, I thought Newcastle were goners. I thought Fulham would catch them. They were on that little run of 4 games. Yeah. So credit where credit's due. But I have to say, not lucky, but my God, some of the football last season was absolutely appalling, including that Brighton game.
Yeah. Pete, for me, I always put it down to the top end of the pitch for Newcastle.
Yeah.
Because your goalkeeper, your defense, and your midfield to a point aren't bad. They're not bad. You're going to win some, you're going to lose some. The key for Newcastle is keeping Maximum, Wilson, Almiron.
Yeah.
And if you get Willock, that is that's another goal scoring threat. So if you've got 4 goal scoring threats on the pitch, you stand a good chance. The problem is Almiron's struggling, Wilson's struggling. St. Maximum struggling. Almiron, I think he's fit. And if there's no Willock to start with, what are you gonna do? You snookered before you start.
Exactly, and they need to hit the ground running as well, because for obviously you need points. We know that, but Steve Bruce will know he needs a good start to keep those fans from baying for his blood. And you talk about St. Maximin. He's a game changer, but he needs. I'm going to be harsh on him. He needs a good season, Kev. He needs some games under his belt. He can't just. He suffered from injuries. He comes on, changes a game as sub. We need him for 90 minutes. He's got to put a run of games together, and he's got to add consistency to his game.
Pete, can I ask you this question then, mate?
Yeah.
Do you think he's asked to do too much? Because, for instance, here's the for instance now. There's so much pressure on that young man, because realistically, obviously Shelvey's deep. There's only so much he can do. But that creative spark is really down to St. Maximum. Wilson is he's the predator. He's the one looking to get in. But St. Maximum and Almiron to a point as well, because I like him. I think he's a decent player. But St. Maximum is the star. Do you think with a Willock, that's why it kind of worked? Because Willock took a bit of pressure off him.
Yeah, exactly. Totally agree with that, because, and again, it goes back to what we were saying somewhat to Shelvey. If you can put a defensive midfielder so Shelvey can move up the pitch slightly, that will help St. Maximin as well. And don't forget, Brucey likes to play with wing backs, so he's got to cover whoever's playing. I mean, it's Jacob Murphy who he's taken to that role. I mean, he wasn't a full back at all, but he's had some good games there. So I think that what Brucey does is he gets whoever's playing in that midfield wide berth area to cover his fullbacks as well. So he's doing a lot of work. And if you've noticed, when St. Maximin's on, he's picking the ball up so deep. It's impossible to hurt anyone from that position.
But what does that do? That makes you fatigue quicker, etc. The reason why I'm saying this, Pete, is because you made a really good point earlier on about having a player with Ginola. I don't want you thinking about going that way. I want you going that way.
Yeah.
For me, that's what I'd be saying to St. Maximum. Look, everyone else, you've got to cover this kid, because when he gets the ball, I need him fresh to hurt the opposition.
And also, as well, I think Brucey should have a look at what Jack Grealish does, because a lot of the time last season, when St Maximin was getting the ball, he was surrounded by 3 and 4 players, but we weren't capitalising on that. No one was,
You've got to use
yeah.
the defence collapsing to your advantage. So you've got to shift the ball quick and then come out the other side and hurt them. Yeah.
And what they weren't shifting that ball. St Maximin could have shifted the ball back. It could have gone square, and then you're out on the other flank. You're completely open and free.
Yeah.
It was too tight. They were coming to St Maximin to support him. And it just wasn't working. I mean, it's easy enough from your armchair, and I'm sure Brucey does that. I would like to give a special mention to Graeme Jones as well, because I watched an interview with Callum Wilson, and whether he meant it or not, it was said that Graeme Jones changed the dynamic in the second half of the season when he arrived, because he has more modern coaching methods than the gaffer, and that was said. So he was allowed to go to the Euros, which was great. He supported England, did a great job there, so his stock's gone up. So I just hope that they can utilise him, give him a bit more to do. There's no doubt in my mind that I don't think it was Steve Bruce's choice. I think Mike Ashley brought him in. Brucey will never admit to that, but I'd like to see him do a little bit more, because there's no doubt we became more. They had more fluidity about them. They were faster on the ball. They attacked in those last 9 games as well, and that's, in my opinion, that's why Newcastle finished 12th.
I think Steve Bruce was instrumental in bringing him in, Pete. I do, because when you're the manager, anything football really is under your jurisdiction. It's very difficult for an owner to bring a coach in under a manager.
If anyone could, Mike Ashley could.
No, but I'm just saying, I look at everywhere I've been, that doesn't happen without the rubber stamping of the manager. That's all. So listen, and fair play, it happened and it helped change Newcastle's fortunes. Listen, you know what I think about Newcastle. I really like Newcastle as a football club. I like the fan base. As a hotbed, I think it's a brilliant football club. And I really, really hope they hit the ground running and they could have a good season, because, there's no longer suffering fan base than the Toon Army. Come on, and when they're buzzing, football is a nicer place.
I think as well, I have to say, just to end with, and I reiterated from the end of last season, to all these reporters, all these people that jump on the lazy Newcastle story bandwagon, come up and watch the game. Get your press pass. Come up and see Newcastle. Don't just read off the internet and then just put the old tired story. They expect too much. We don't. Just want a team that gives 100%. For the 52,000 to go, the 5,000 to go away from home. If they get beat, Newcastle fans will accept that. They'll go, oh, you know what? But they gave it a go. I thought Almiron ran his socks off today. Blah blah blah. You got beat, but there's always next week. That's Newcastle fans. We don't expect to be. Who expects to be in the Champions League? Certainly not us. Those days are long gone. I just think that I think the media should do their jobs a little bit more. And have a look at Newcastle. So I'm inviting them all up on my behalf to come and experience St James's Park.
Pete, don't forget, some of your Toon Army tried to call me out about what are you doing commenting on Newcastle when, remember, I was watching, because I'm with Joe Morris. I'm watching Newcastle every week, virtually. I'm watching it virtually every week. So I was keeping up with the games. It
was a great Twitter exchange.
Yeah, it was. Listen,
it was fair.
And that's why I've got so much respect for the Toon Army. Yeah, they call me out, etc. But I responded because I was watching them virtually every week and seeing the performances.
And that respect that they have for you as well as a player. I remember the last sort of few tweets were like, Kev, it's been brilliant. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us, blah, blah, blah. They know their football. Well, they know what they want. And like every club, there's high expectations among some of the fans, and there's negativity, and every club has that.
Every club has that.
I think it's
Pete. What position do you expect? Come on, you're not going to get away with this. You done me on 2. What position?
I think 12th, and I'll take that now, and a decent cup run, because we love a good cup run. But yeah, I'd take 12th happily. It depends on the start, and again, the $1 million question is, will there be any additions? If Willett comes in, I'll be extremely happy because they can build a team around that middle. Like I say, that lad's ability, I haven't seen anyone for a long, long time arrive late in the box. And a lot of those were headers as well, you know. Absolutely fantastic. A great talent. And he's ideal to wear the black and white. He loved it. He was literally, he would have his phone handed to him as he came off the pitch, and he'd be doing his Instagram as he was coming off after 90 minutes, saying, and he was buzzing. He was absolutely, can you imagine what he's going to be like if the fans are in there?
Listen, Pete, this is what I will say. Having played at St. James's Park many a time, first time I played there was 19.
Yeah.
For Leicester in Roy Aitken's first game, if you remember.
I was there, yeah.
And what a game that was. You ended up beating us 4-3 on the day. Absolutely brilliant. There was no roof on Gallagher. The Gallagher end was open, and it was absolutely freezing. But it was absolutely fantastic. The fans know their football. Joe Willett can fulfill a lot of his football dreams at Newcastle on the pitch with those fans in the stadium.
Yeah.
The start, that's why the start is so important, Pete. It's so important for, well, all of these 3 clubs, the start is so important.
Yeah. They've got to hit the ground running, haven't they? Listen, Saturday, what a show we've got lined up on Soccer Saturday. It's going to be hard to control, but we've got, speaking of goals, you've got yourself on there. You've got Kenny Miller, only the 5th person to ever play since the war for both Celtic and Rangers. Most of his goals were at Rangers. 234 he scored. He knows where the back of the net is, doesn't he?
Definitely.
And we've got our celebrity chef, Galton Blackiston, Norwich City's finest. Can't wait for that. So that's Saturday from 11 a.m. UK, 2 p.m. Dubai. Kev, we'll see you then. It's been an absolute pleasure and look forward to it.
Pete, fantastic. Thanks for having me on. And everyone, Premier League is coming.